Paula?
So would you say that this cycle that you explained is somewhat of an explanation as to why people then step outside of relationships? Because they're constantly seeking that initial pleasure, physical? So once it gets boring, is what I'm saying. Once it gets boring, right? You've been in this relationship for however long. Or is that just the human flaw of some people?
Can you repeat your question, please?
So does the cycle explain why there are some people in relationships that cheat on their significant other?
Why they cheat on their significant other. Okay, you're taking us to a different path, but that's fine. You're fine, Bridget. The idea of cheating, that in itself is quite complicated, and I'll tell you why. I'm not really quite sure if human beings are monogamous or polygamous. That's the first thing. When you read stories in the Old Testament, for example, King David, Solomon, Abraham, and many others, not only do they have over 100 wives, they also have concubines. Okay? So I'm not sure if you're made monogamous or polygamous. Let me give you an example. The way you and I define relationships, really for the most part, has to do with cultural narratives. If you go to certain Indian communities, Indian in India, or even South American cultures, when it's time for a young woman to get married, okay, because what makes this young woman valuable is her ability to produce babies, to get pregnant. Okay? So what she does is this. She leaves her community for a year. She becomes very physically intimate with at least 30 or 40 men. She has sex. She comes back pregnant. Okay? Some of them come back with a child in hand. And now, there sits the community. In that community, 5 or 6 or 7 men who are ready for marriage come forward and says, I will marry you now. That's not considered cheating. Okay? So the point I'm trying to make is the way we define relationships and the way we pass judgments about what a relationship should or shouldn't be like, it is cultural. Consider the marriage vow. In sickness or in health, I'll be around you. Now you're 20. You have no idea the burden of sickness. If your wife at the age of 35 and you've only been married for about like 2 years, if all of a sudden she gets sick, you are 30. Your life is just beginning. And you got no health insurance. And you take your wife to doctors and you don't have money. Is it a sin to be wrathful, angry? Did you sign up to carry your sick wife from this or that doctor for the next 60 years? Are you not a human being? Do you not desire some sexual intimacy, a great conversation once in a while? Do you need to be around sickness for the rest of your life? Not only are you imprisoned by the reality of your wife's condition, which is she is sick, you're also imprisoned by a cultural and religious narrative that says, in sickness and in health. And that becomes your moral code in life. On the outside, you try to pretend. On the inside, you're being eaten alive. There is another thing. Let's say, Polo, that you have a house in which you have lived for the past 20 years. Is it not true that you go on vacation? And when you go on vacation, you rent a motel for a night or two. Now imagine if your house had conscience and could speak to you, says, have you no shame that you have left me for another room, much smaller, much smellier? Why would you do that? You say, hey, listen, I understand all of that. I just went away for a day, that's all. Okay. This is not a way to justify anyone's behavior in regards to what they call as cheating. You know, the problem with understanding and reflection is that they begin to create a good amount of conflict on the inside. And then it is your task to wrestle with these ideas. And it's either the human tendencies that'll win or the better part of you. Okay? If this nobler part of you wins, the next step is when you see something wrong, let's say your companion, you will have no choice but to turn to the other cheek. You will never become aggressive, but inwardly you may have a lot of aggression on the inside, but you will have been trained by them to refine the aggression. It's kind of like Picasso. He's sitting drinking his cup of coffee, and then he hears that this village has been bombed. You know what he does? He grabs his pen or pencil and a piece of paper and he sketches Guernica. That's how he releases his tension. And if you're able to steal that particular, drawing, it'll fetch you a few $1 million. The other thing, the truth is, life is boring. You have a moment of rest and pleasure. But, it's kind of like the story I told you about buffing cars. You have a car that's been oxidized, the paint. Okay, so you bring it to me. I work on it for an hour. It's shiny, it looks really, really nice. 2 weeks later, it's going to come back. The glaze is going to go away, and you're going to look at your car and you're going to feel miserable. Sometimes I think people just go out of what is called normal, moral. Consider the story that comes from Genesis, the Garden of Eden. It's a great story, really. If you want to know what sort of animals you are, go back to the story. You have God. It's the Garden of Eden. It's a place where you've never experienced pain. Food grows for you. You don't need to do anything. Just walk around and be happy, man. But no, that's not enough. You are born to be rebellious. You are born to be discontent. You are born to be curious. And I don't think it's wise to buy into these ideas of sin and eternal damnation or punishment. I think eternal damnation exists only for those who are unable to overcome the past, where the past gets recycled and repeated over and over and over again. Okay, so you had a bad boyfriend at the age of 18, he did A, B, C, D to you, you're 30 now. It doesn't need to be eternal recurrence where this trauma keeps coming out and destroying whatever you've created. The next stage is called bronze. If the iron signifies genitalia, bronze signifies the abdomen. It's a place of power. And it's really, really good. In the sense that you just don't want to spend your days in bed with your companion. You want to create good conversations. You want to create healthy narratives. Maybe the ideas of marriage and family and children, and maybe putting your money together and buying a house. You want power over uncertainties of life. Some of you in this class are no longer 18 or 19 or 20. Some of you are 25, maybe 29, maybe 30, maybe 40. Some of you just got tired of getting drunk and getting high, having casual sex or relationships with crummy people. Maybe you just got tired of partying. You find yourself at Laney or Berkeley or Yale. You're looking for a different kind of pleasure. Look, if you want to have sex with Brad Pitt, it's 2 weeks. Once the 2 weeks are over, the satisfaction is going to come to you. If on the other hand, you get to the bronze stage and now you say, I want to get a master's degree, you're talking about a journey that's going to take you 5 years. This satisfaction is going to come and knock on your door 5 years from today. That's a great journey to be on. It doesn't mean you're not going to struggle up here. It doesn't mean that once in a while you don't want to go back down and say, you know what, I'd rather just be in no committed relationships. Just have sex and move on. Just chit-chat without it being meaningful and move on. Okay? Here's the thing you need to know. If you're down here and you just want to have meaningless intimacies, conversations, parties, no one can force you to go to the bronze stage. If you're casual, no one on this planet can force you to be serious. This is what we call evolution. It needs to come from within. And it can happen in a variety of different ways. Your mom can be relentlessly talking to you about how stupid you are. At a certain point in your conversation with your mom, something about you will crack open and you will understand. Now that may take 2 weeks, 2 years, or 22 years. No one knows. Okay? For those of you who didn't take school seriously, who didn't take money seriously, look at where you are now. You're very, very careful how you spend your money. Why? You need to pay rent. You need to take care of your mom, your kids. It's no longer about smoking or drinking or just partying. You have evolved. It's called the bronze. Your love affair is no longer about things that come and go quickly. Now it's about things that bring about stability to your life. Okay? And you should give yourself some credit, even if you're at the iron stage. Okay? Where you're looking for pleasures that are immediate and quick and intense. There comes a moment in your own relationship where you look at your companion and say, I really, really like you. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. At what stage you got there, no one knows. How you got there, no one knows. All we know is that you're there. Whether or not you have the tools, that's a different story. Okay? So this is about power. It could be money and how you spend it. It could be education and how you see it. Okay. But really, for the most part, it's about having power over the uncertainties of life. Next is what we call silver. It's the chest area. For the first time, you become a bit more selfless. This is all about you, the iron stage. It's about my pleasure, my fun. This is about you, my power, my money, my education, my rights. When you get to the silver stage, you are married. It's about your companion. It's about your children. It's about relationships you have put your mind and soul in. You're invested. Now, it doesn't mean that when you're at this stage silver, you're not going to come down here and cheat. Once in a while, you will slip. You will do unsavory things. But because you're invested up here, you will always drag yourself up here. You'll have a good amount of shame and guilt and remorse. This is a place where you will repent. Down here, no one's going to call you a dad or a mom. Up here, your kid will look at you and say, Dad. And if you cheat, you have an identity that you didn't have down here. Your kid will remind you that he needs you for the rest of his life. And that's enough to send you into repentance. So remember, the emotions that you may not have at the iron stage, some you will have at bronze, some you will have at silver. I've had students who are 18, 19, 20, and I asked, just to be curious and for fun perhaps, who gets high? Who smokes marijuana? And 30 hands go up. Now, they are at a stage where they have no shame, where they think that actually it's courageous, it's mature to say, yeah, I smoke and I drink and I bet a lot of people. After you gain some maturity, now you may still be doing those things, but your hand will never go up. Something about you has changed. But that change has not yet taken a physical action. You haven't been completely transformed. It's just living inside your head. All right? Now, for those of us in this class who know people and have been around people who've been addicted to things, or they've been in the habit of, say, let's just say, playing video games, what is it that once in a while they say? I want to quit playing video games, quit drinking, quit smoking. It exists as an intellectual fantasy. The next stage is they begin to feel that they really need to quit. Then there comes a point where they say, I'm going to go look for resources or tools that will help me quit. So you got to go through all these stages to actually be able to finally quit. So if you have a companion who's got anger issues, addiction issues, it's not that they don't want to quit. It hasn't yet taken an emotional form. If there are no intense emotions, there is no guilt. There is no personal shame. Then there comes a point where they say, come with me to this gathering. Help me quit this addiction. Now, it doesn't mean they're not going to go back to the old world. All I'm telling you is the difficulties of moving up. Okay? So just in case any of you in this class who got some issues slip and fall back down, do not label yourself as a loser, incompetent, none of those things. It just takes time. That's what change is. It takes time for things to change. Okay? So if this is about, say, physical life, this is about intellectual life, and this is about, say, human relationships in a very caring and compassionate way. The next stage is going to be somewhat problematic. We call it gold. The problem with gold is that it has nothing to do with the previous three stages. When you get to the gold stage, and we can talk about this on Tuesday, or Thursday, when you get to the gold stage, iron, bronze, and silver, whatever history they may have inside you, they will no longer give you meaning. They're no longer relevant. You are, for the first time in your life, on a spiritual quest, on a philosophical quest. This is a solitary journey. This you need people. This you need people. This you need people. But when you get to gold, it's a devastating place to be in life. And we'll talk more about the gold if you're interested on Thursday.